call to action is beyond just the agents, it's also to the industry. We
Yeah.
can do more. We can satisfy latent needs. And I'd really like to see us change some of the almost negative connotation that comes with personal insurance. I think it is a value product, and we can start to change that perception. Hi, I'm Casey Kempton, President, P&C Personal Lines at Nationwide. Welcome to the future of insurance.
Casey, I'm very excited to get some time with you, and we are going to dig into something that I have been preaching for a few years. People in the industry have been preaching for a few years, but we haven't really gotten that far in it. So we will get into that. But to open things up, for those who don't know you, can you tell us who you are and what your world is at Nationwide?
Sure. So I'm Casey Kempton, and I'm the president of Personal Lines at Nationwide. I lead, obviously, auto, home, some of the additional lines that we write, umbrella, toys, RVs, etc. So I've been in this role since about February of 2024. So not quite 2 years yet, but I have to say it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my career. We have such a strong focus on customer and our members and our distribution partners while we lead both for today and for the future.
I have had the honor and luck, really, of getting a few of your peers or different leaders from Nationwide on the show over the years. And that piece you just said actually really resonates consistently across everyone. It is really cool getting to see behind the scenes on a number of companies, and you can sort of tell when they mean it and when they don't. So the fact that you're here means I keep getting that positive sense. And yeah, I commend Nationwide and the entire team. You guys have done some really cool stuff and continue to push, which is why I wanted to talk to you about predict and prevent, because it is something lots of people have been talking about. Losses keep getting worse. We're not really making progress on it, but you put out this white paper sort of not calling everyone to the map, but calling out, look, this is the impact of it. This is what we need to do. And you had this twist where you were speaking to the distribution partners, the agents as well, which is not something I've really heard so far. But it struck me as like, that's the last mile. That's actually how you get to the insureds to get the adoption and the engagement. I I don't want to give it all away, but like, can you walk us through like what is the issue? Why is this the time? And what do we do about it?
Certainly. I'll start with the distribution piece. Um, Fundamentally, I believe insurance is a human business. And while there has been real commoditization that has occurred, kind of that switch and save mentality, we've, I think, inadvertently taught consumers over the last 25, 30 years that insurance is just something you have to have, and the cheaper the better. And don't buy any more than you need for the best price that you can find. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. I think for auto insurance, with the pricing sophistication and data enhancements and advancements that have been made, it actually makes sense, right? You should never pay for more than what you need. The key that I think is different is understanding what it is that you need and
Mm.
understanding what the coverage is in any given policy and what the real service is from the company that's going to be servicing you. And that's where that advice from independent agents can be a real benefit. And when you combine with that the homeowner's insurance, which I think is less commoditized, there are more options, there are more optional coverages, there are different levels of coverage, and often there are different opportunities with how we think about deductibles and how much a customer may want to self insure. So, what we don't want to do is kind of drag homeowners into that commodity space the
Yeah.
way that auto may exist, and that might be okay, and really leverage the advice of the agent to get you the right home umbrella coverage and all the things.
When you talked about the switch and save, um, just coming back from a conference where I talked about this, and specifically, I feel like we as an industry, through the most successful ads that have been out, have really trained the customers to think exactly what you're saying. Insurance is not something we all know it's not something you want. It's not really something you need. You just have to suffice. Like you have to meet the bare minimum, and the less you pay, the better, which is a fine kind of value story, except where you said for what you need. And I think there's a misunderstanding of what you need. And we've sort of trained them to feel like you don't need anything just to satisfy that legal requirement. So get as little as you can, pay as little as you can. It's always worth switching for less without actually remembering where there's a thing you're buying still. It's not just about how much you're paying, it's what you're getting for it. And I don't think people have come to understand that. And I think again, the most successful marketers in our space have reinforced this message of like, don't worry about what you're getting. Like, let's just focus on paying as little as you can. Like, we're training the population not to care about the coverage at all.
Yeah. And it sort of defies what insurance was originally set up for
Yeah.
by consumers themselves. It's risk pooling that if something goes wrong to one person in the community who've contributed to it, the fund is there to rebuild, to restore, to repair, whatever might be the case. And I think in auto insurance, because it is compulsory attached to your registration, homeowners is often required either by a landlord in the case of renters, but not always,
Yeah.
but certainly by a mortgage company. And so, where you have that requirement, it just kind of feels also compulsory, when in fact, that's really where we can add a lot of value. And that's where I think predict and prevent comes into play, and the real opportunity for the agents.
Yeah. We are trapped in this cycle of repair and replace being the kind of mirror image or the opposite side of the coin to predict and prevent, where not to say anything triggering, but like we're buying roofs every year,
Mhm.
dealing with the hail issue that is sort of like 40% of the country at any given time, the wildfire issue that we keep getting in these cycles of we just put back exactly what was there that was just destroyed, which is not it's not good for us. It's really not good for the homeowners either. It's not good for their premium. It's not good for their life. I mean, it's a miserable experience being out of your home for an extended period of time for something that perhaps could have been avoided or at least diminished in the scale of it. So that's why I was excited to read the piece. Talk to me a little bit about what kinds of things you go into. And then I do want to hit on that distribution because it is the first time I've seen anyone talk to agents as part of that audience. And that really struck me as different.
Yeah. So I don't believe that people wake up every morning and say to themselves, gee, I really hope I don't have a loss today or a claim today, right? First and foremost, they're going to think, I just want to get through the day without being interrupted in any kind of way, whether it's a flat tire, whether it's, a water heater going, busting, whatever could happen. And when you think about predict and prevent, which I often think is really predict, prepare, prevent, it's not so much a new concept in insurance, right? It is risk management as we understand it in commercial lines.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity where personal lines is there's a lot more kind of volume passing through carriers, and we are kind of squeezing the price point to have it be the lowest we can afford. So there's always this kind of a desire to keep the expense ratio as low as possible so we don't have to build that into the pricing. When you think about what we can do to prevent, in our vernacular, loss or claims, that actually delivers additional value because it may not be just a risk mitigation in terms of there's an activity, you cut down the overhanging brush over your house, right? That certainly is a mitigant to loss or to severity should there be a loss. But how is it that you can be made aware and in a moment, in real time, with different sensors and signals, prepare for a pending event that may even be more immediate, or something that you just can't see? It exists behind your walls or in your floor and your ceiling in
Yeah.
terms of your pipes and your electrical currents. You definitely can't see the electricity coming into your home from the power pole that's sitting outside. But you do probably wish that you knew if it could create anything from a major fire to the inconvenience of actually, surges happening outside, coming into your home and deteriorating the life of your major appliances, right? Like, so
Yeah.
there's loss benefits, claim benefits, and then other benefits. And so that piece of it, I think, is new in personal lines, and where perhaps it has existed before, there has been an associated discount, right? Think of the security
Mhm.
system that we have, and if it's central station monitored, and you can prove that in some cases, then you're eligible for a larger discount. I think, that is an important thing to have a discount about because you are specifically preventing the likelihood of some peril, but it doesn't come with any services as part of it, right? The
Hmm.
central station monitoring, you're paying for yourself, and those are the services, right? So it offsets some of that cost in your insurance discounts. As we think about the new devices that are coming out, they are first of all, most of them are AI companies, and they're
Yep.
looking for patterns. They're not just a device. And second of all, the services that are delivered by the partner of Nationwide's and other carriers is not only providing some financial coverage for an unexpected repair, but servicing that in a way, whether it's over the phone, whether that's having, a whole bunch of plumbers and electricians in a network. If you can't get one on your own fast enough, they will send one to your house and then reimburse in some cases up to $1,000. In other cases, it might be $250 worth of parts being reimbursed. Now I've done a whole bunch of things
Yeah.
from the get through my day. I was alerted to something that I perhaps didn't know was there. Thank goodness for that, right? I feel safer because of that. Number two, they got to me as quickly as possible. I had advice and a consultation about that. I didn't need to or have time. Like, I didn't wake up saying, I'm going to go get a plumber or an electrician today or
Yeah.
tomorrow. They do that for you. And maybe I don't have that out of pocket cost, and it's covered. And I don't have to scramble to figure out how I get that. And that, I think, is the real difference between what we're thinking about in personal lines and even some of the other services that exist in commercial lines.
It's it's trying to overcome that friction point for the homeowner to not just be aware, but to take action.
Yeah.
I saw a water mitigation, like a leak detection commercial, from one of the big alarm companies.
Hmm.
And to me, it felt very out of touch. It was
Hmm.
someone got an alert and they were, away on business or whatever. And so they called their neighbor who happened to be home and happened to have an extra key. And the neighbor came over and was like fiddling around under the sink and turned the water off, which is lovely. I don't know how often that actually could happen. I get along great with my neighbors. They don't have a key to my house. But
Hmm.
like that's the moment after your house floods when you're like, okay, we need to have someone nearby with a key, but it's too late then.
Right.
Um, it's all of those little like, well, I was tied up all day. I couldn't find a plumber. I couldn't this. I couldn't that. What you're talking about is having those solutions to step in and actually get it done, and not just like tell you that your house is getting destroyed and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not
Yeah.
not very. It's I mean, it's somewhat helpful. You can plan ahead, maybe, but it's also extremely anxiety
Hmm.
creating and doesn't stop your house from getting ruined. So I love that.
Exactly.
Like trying to think about we do have some pretty amazing networks from a repair standpoint. Why
Hmm.
aren't we bringing those to bear?
Yeah. And
So
it's integrated
yeah,
into the experience. That's the other difference. It is super easy to install. And I think that's kind of an overstatement. These things aren't really an installation, right? You plug it in or you clip it here, um, download an app, or it'll be available through the Nationwide app. You won't have to download another app. I think the hardest part about setting some of these services up is finding the Wi-Fi password.
yeah, very fair. Um, One of the things that's always struck me when you spoke about the risk management side or loss prevention side on commercial lines, there's often dollars for that. There's, especially as you get into the larger, more complex risk, the risk engineered kind of space within insurance, there's specific dollars or hours bought for those services. And the thing that I've seen a lot of carriers struggle with is in personal lines, who's paying for that? And I've seen carriers get stuck on like, we did a pilot, we saw the impact of this, but we didn't know what budget to stick it in, so we didn't do anything. And it's like that frustrates me. It's like so it's a net positive for you, and you just can't figure out which P&L to put it under to make it happen. How are you sorting out or navigating that complexity in personal lines where we don't traditionally have a loss prevention or risk management pot to pay for these things that it's not a claim. So, should claims pay for it? Well, it's kind of the opposite of a claim. Is it an underwriting cost? Is it a customer? Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, it's more of an underwriting cost, right? Similar to how we might use imagery
Mm,
about a home to underwrite the actual risk, right? It's the only difference from an underwriting standpoint or loss prevention standpoint is that it is in fact um, prevent, I mean, it's notifying in real time, right?
Yeah.
So that plus there are offsets both from increased retention as well as the loss mitigation, and it's very real. So we look, over a period of time at some of our, total loss on fire and those that are caused by electrical fire. And then we determine which of those did we send the fire prevention device for electrical fires from Ting
Mm,
to, who had an offer for a Ting, who maybe did we send a Ting device to, but they hadn't installed it yet.
mm,
And there's real dollars there.
yeah.
Especially kind of at our scale. And unfortunately, electrical fires do happen. And so this is where I really think the agent becomes a really important part of the equation.
Yeah. As soon as you mentioned the person who got the device but didn't install it, now I'm like, all right, now we've got a problem to solve. So was that the genesis of the agent side of it? And
Yeah.
how is that working out? Like, how are you getting the agents on board to have the impact?
Yeah, so two parts of it. One, we believe the agent is part of the value proposition description about why independent agent, why one company over another. And this is what you get. So, one, we've got to do proper awareness. And I specifically don't say education or training because to change behavior, right, awareness and education are just one part of it, right? You've
Yeah.
got to find ways to reinforce a new behavior. And so we are absolutely working on that and how we approach agents, the conversations we have, the tools we put in front of them to reinforce that. So one is make sure that they can present this is a differentiator on the front end. But then once we send a device or we activate a customer, the agent selects that activation, and then we follow up with various communications. Whisker Labs, who sells the Ting device, follows up. And so we're trying to find what is the right reach out and from whom to kind of drive some of that activation to stress the importance there. And we do think the distribution partner plays a role in that, right?
Yeah.
So one is how can I help make them aware that this device has been ordered, if you will, or sent to them and it isn't activated. And this is just data and APIs and lookups, and you can send those signals in an easy way to our internal service teams, to our underwriting teams who engage directly with the agents, to our sales teams, and or if an agent prefers it in their workflow such that it shows up and says, hey, I've got to follow up on this, and perhaps they set rules around that, right? Maybe they don't have the time to reach every customer, but the provider and or we can do that on their behalf, and then some they're absolutely going to follow up on. And so then the key is how do they work that into their rhythms? And these are the conversations we're having right now. I ran a
Yeah.
symposium just this weekend on exactly this topic, right? So where's the rub in the kind of financial side of how we manage personal lines and the opportunity side to make homes safer fundamentally?
Yeah. Um, there's so much more I want to ask you about with this, but I'm also aware that at some point the show has to end. Um, I want to look forward a bit, and one of the things in the past conversations I've had with other leaders at Nationwide has been around how the company has, I think, really been at the forefront of some of the connectivity with other, um, basically like the thing the person wanted in the first place that they ultimately needed to insure, like a car.
Yeah.
Um, Nationwide has been for a major carrier, much more connected and enabling in terms of embedded insurance or powering the OEM branded insurance and partnering through that. And I know it's not a monoline solution. You're then thinking about, what's the cross sell, what's the homeowners, what's the total picture of that relationship. Cars have so many sensors, technologies, connected features, and that will only improve. There's a predict and prevent capability to that. Are you thinking about it as you look at the future of personal lens? Are you thinking about those sorts of things too? That what kind of distribution partnerships might unlock from a capability standpoint that we can then use to help protect these insureds as well? Like, how do you see where the industry is going, especially in terms of that kind of embedded and connected mindset that's slowly but growing every year?
Yeah, I think there are definitely insurance buyers out there who are interested to go through a straight path of I bought my car. Some even you buy them online, right? And the insurance like shows up in my cart as an option, and I can add it to, like you might do for travel insurance when you buy an airline ticket. And so that definitely exists. And then the data sharing. Lots of reservations still around privacy and such with the data. And so that continues to be an evolving space, but I do believe as future generations come forward and the comfort level with data might start to shift as well, if there's more trust there on the protections that are placed, but the protections have to be in place, right? And that continues to advance and evolve. And personally, I think there's always a risk, but there's a lot of perception there. And then I would go to more telematics, and what that is and how it functions really varies from carrier to carrier. Whether it is something that is related to how you think about your teen driving and what you want them to be protected from, or it's, I kind of just think I'm a good driver and I'd love to have a discount, right? So carriers approach it differently. They have different periods of observation. Some are continuous, some are when you set it up, some are annual. Others will discount, others will, charge more premium instead of reversing a discount. So we all go at it differently. And I think it's confusing for agents to be like, I don't know exactly how to sell this program. And I don't know 100% if when I put my best customers on it, is it going to be confusing for them? And do I risk losing that customer?
Yeah.
And so paying attention to that experience and that service. When I talk to agents and we talk about, make homes safer, but fundamentally as risk professionals, how we contribute to sort of society and making roads safer is really important. And until the full fleet has all of what I'd call the accident prevention technologies, you still need that driver behavior component to make people self-aware. And so we do other things beyond telematics that actually give people points for good driving, which they could turn into actual gift cards. That's available to everyone. That's our contribution to making the roads safer.
That's interesting. I do think there are a lot of different mechanisms that we can employ, but your point about the kind of skeptical agent of like, I got a good thing going. If I start talking about this, what if this confuses the customer, angers the customer, or they don't get it and neither do I, but they're directing all of that at me. Now I'm in a worse spot. So I'll just leave this alone and won't even talk about it. I think that is it's not ignorance or stubbornness on their part. It's actually a genuine concern for their business. And I think you recognizing that it is valid if we want to overcome it.
Yeah. I mean, in the best case, we make the agent the hero.
Yeah.
In the worst case, they lose a customer because in spite of their best efforts, they couldn't resolve something or they're not aware of something. And I think paying attention to that dimension is absolutely part of a very strong partnership, which we pride ourselves in at Nationwide.
Yeah. And when you lose a customer these days, they're detractors and they will tell lots of other people about it for both the agent and the insurer brand. So yeah,
the key is to make them into advocates.
Right. Casey, I appreciate it. For me, it is this, like, we keep talking about it. I've just come from ITC where a couple years ago, it was one of the buzzwords along with embedded. And now the only buzzword is AI, maybe Gen AI, if we have to get more specific. But, one conversation in the whole conference that I was a part of had anything to do with predict and prevent, which I applauded, but it was like, we can't lose the steam for this because this is actually kind of the whole point of insurance is not just to pay for everything that's wrong. It's to enable the world to function and to exist. And you do that by stopping great loss, not by just paying for it on the back end, which ultimately society's bearing that cost. And the point is to avoid it.
And we can do now with AI, with data and how we stitch that data together and validate different aspects of exposure, reflect that mitigation in our pricing. We're just getting smarter and smarter, and AI is a part of how we do that, how we get more efficient to be able to take on more services that customers don't necessarily have to pay for, and ultimately how we bring forward a better recommendation to the agent about
Yeah.
what might fit for a customer. So I don't see AI as much as a buzzword, as a massive opportunity. And I'll just make an editorial comment here. I've been involved and I've been to ITC, I think 7 times. Haven't been in the last 2 years as part of a different role that I had. And I've seen how it's kind of shifted and what's sort of in vogue each year. And one of the lessons I've been asked to comment on in the past has been, where do insurtechs still have room to improve? And
Hmm.
my answer to that is just no insurance. And then I take it to know our insurance use cases as
Hmm.
well as we do. And that's where I think some of the shift is happening with AI, because it is so dependent on being aware of and having a depth of knowledge about different situations. And so I'm optimistic that data will get better and tools will get smarter and will continue to get efficient, because we're really getting into more the technical side of underwriting, of exposure, of risk selection, of claims mitigation,
Yeah.
and obviously, as we've talked about, predict and prevent.
Yeah. I was saying the other day the age of the dinosaur hunter of insurtech has largely ended. Where some outsiders like, oh, these insurance dinosaurs, they're all idiots. We'll put them out of business in 5 minutes. That didn't really work. So yeah, there's more deference, I think, for just how hard it is and how much you actually need to understand kind of underwriting at its core and what it really means. So yeah,
I think that's fair, but we don't want it to get crowded out. To your
yeah,
point, the fundamentals can't be crowded out as there's like shiny objects everywhere, right? Like we have to keep that balanced
yes.
conversation.
Yeah, fair point. Casey, I'm going to put a link to the white paper. Well, I'll put it at the bottom of the screen, but I'll also put it in the show notes because I wish more people would dig into this. And you don't name names. I know you mentioned Ting that you guys are working with, but you do name the strategies and the specific things we can be doing. And again, I love the framing of it's not just at an insurer audience, it's also at an agent audience. And so it does feel quite practical of like, okay, this is what this means in this theme. This is how we need to take this forward. So thank you for putting this out. And I do want people to read it. So I'm going to stick a link in the show notes, but really appreciate you taking some time to share about it today.
Yeah, totally happy to be here and tell our story. And the call to action is beyond just the agents, it's also to the industry. We
Yeah.
can do more. We can satisfy latent needs. And I'd really like to see us change some of the almost negative connotation that comes with personal insurance. I think it is a value product, and we can start to change that perception. So
Yeah,
thank you
really
so
well
much for
said.
having me, Brian. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Casey.